We're talking today to Patrick Myers, frontman and Killer Queen. They're going to be in Eau Claire on March 30th. That's a Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. show, Pablo Center at the Confluence. As I was watching the video, the promotional video for Killer Queen, and seeing all the aspects of the show, just kind of the bite-sized appetizer, if you will, of Killer Queen. Start with the very beginning. What made you get into the group in the first place when you were younger?
Well, I was a kid. I just left home, and I founded the band. Really, we sort of began before there were tributes, so there wasn't like a tribute scene that we were joining. We kind of forged a tribute scene along with everyone else at the same time. But ours was primarily because we just left home. We just got into a halls of residence there for college, and we got the news that Freddie had died, and we were all in total shock because this was pre-internet, so this hadn't been trailed unless you'd read the sort of the National Enquirer kind of papers and that kind of thing. You wouldn't have known. And I was a Queen fan. I'd been a Queen fan since I was about 13 or 14, and just was heartbroken that he'd gone through this, that he was no longer with us. And then for selfish things, like, that's it, you're not going to see them tour. And for the rest of the band as well, it was just mind-blowingly awful, devastating news. And because we didn't really know each other in the halls of residence, we were getting to know each other. We got to know each other through singing Queen songs. And, you know, people would be playing Queen songs at all hours, and I'd be singing them up and down the corridors. I was taking my laundry up and down from the laundry room. There's a piano there. So we'd all meet in the laundry room and just sing and play Queen songs together. And it was that organic. Then it changed. Then I thought, hang on, no, I can do something. Let's do a concert, because none of us had seen Queen. We're all too young to have seen Queen. You know, if we'd have been a couple of years, 3 years older, we'd have had the independence to go down to London and see them or whenever they were playing, and we hadn't. So we thought we'll form a band. We can do this. And I was studying drama at the time. I'd studied dance before that, and I'd studied acting. So I had some kind of self-confidence, but also a lot of naivety, because I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be.
Right.
But
yeah.
when you're that young, you just go, I don't care, I'm going to do this. I charged forth in a fit of sort of naive enthusiasm and stupidity in equal measure, and anyway, the enthusiasm won, thankfully, and we managed to do a big show. Our first ever show was in front of 1,000 people, and some crazy situation. They'd lost their entertainment license. They could only put on a student band, so they thought, hey, there's this guy who's put together this crazy Queen tribute. And there hadn't been a Queen tribute before. This was really hot stuff, you know.
Uh-huh.
So they put us on, and we headlined, and we did this show, and it just took off. And we went from having no shows, and we were a last-minute booking. We went from having no shows at all, and no idea of how to get a show, to suddenly having one show, and then suddenly 2 weeks later having a whole tour booked, and then a few months down the line, we were in the West End, which is like Broadway. Mm-hmm. It went that quickly. So, and the reactions from the audience, from the word go, literally from that very first concert, were electric, because that music is dynamite. Right. It sets a room on fire, that stuff. It's incendiary. It's great fun to play, great fun to perform, and a delight to be with an audience that wants to share it so much, you know.
One of the things that has fascinated me about the fandom of Queen living in the States, growing up in the States, is that, Queen had their hits, obviously, but seemed to tail off. And I was a kid just getting into music in the 80s. So as I'm becoming aware, Queen's not having hits anymore in the 80s in the United States. They are in the UK. They're not in the US. The Freddie Mercury passing.
They're having hits.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and then Wayne's World as well. Just before that happened, Wayne's World suddenly sort of made everyone go. There were some rallying points for Queen. In as much as Live Aids, everyone saying, "Wow, Queen are amazing," but
right.
and Queen, and it became the focus points. But but in America there was a whole thing that went on that to do with radio play and Freddie's accessibility with interviews, and it was who knows what it was. I don't really know. You sort of get a sense of it from the film, but it was a complicated thing. And I think Queen were of a mind that let's not go back and play the smaller venues. We go back and play the bigger venues, and if we wait long enough, this will happen, because the quality of what we're doing, the quality of what Queen was producing didn't dip. If anything, it got bigger and bigger. I mean, the stuff on the Works album was amazing. Hard Life, Radio Gaga is an enormously fantastic track. And everything, you know, and Hammer to Fall, And then later on with "I Want It All" and "A Kind of Magic" is a great pop track, as well as "Who Wants to Live Forever." I mean, they were producing dynamite stuff, but so they figured, look, it's not like we're a busted flush. We're creatively as strong as we ever were, but America needs to be reminded of that, and at some point America will wake up to that, and when they wake up to it, we'll go back and play the arenas. And of course, then Freddie got ill, and it wasn't possible. But yes, it did happen. But what happens when someone, the focal point of any band dies, is everyone turns around and realizes, don't it always seem to go, you don't know what you got till it's gone,
Right.
And I think America collectively went, why weren't we paying attention to Queen all this time? They've been doing nothing but gold. This is beautiful. And poor man, Freddie Mercury, having to go through that, and then no longer with us. We don't have this enormous, generous, creative fire, anymore. He's gone. And so let's celebrate his legacy. Let's celebrate his music.
Well, and it also...
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
No. You carry on.
Yeah. There was like a second wave too, and again, you tell me, I know a lot of your tour dates have been overseas, especially in the UK. But I wonder if you noticed the same thing that I did about 3 years ago. Bohemian Rhapsody comes out, and there seemed to be there was again that first wave when the passing happened. Wayne's World came out at the same time. It was coincidental, but yes, suddenly there's this first reminder. But then it seemed as though around 2018, here in the United States, there was finally this collective acceptance of, oh my gosh, they're as amazing as everyone else has thought. And it seems as though Queen has kind of moved up a notch into like another level of the rock pantheon. Have you noticed that with American crowds, that maybe it was the movie, maybe it was songs like Don't Stop Me Now suddenly getting used in commercials? Something seemed to change in the past few years. What have you noticed?
I think you're right with a song like "Don't Stop Me Now." I think all of the things you said are right there, but "Don't Stop Me Now" has got this curious sort of afterlife because it wasn't a huge hit even in the UK. It was one of their great, another cool one from Queen, and then they really slayed us all with things like "Crazy Little Thing Called Love" and "Save Me" and all that sort of stuff a bit later on. But it was another fantastic Freddie song. But it subsequently, its second life after that, it's become this. It's the perfect song for putting your glad rags on and getting ready to go out and hit the town, and it's got such effervescence and simple, pure fun to it. Such sort of it's sort of burning optimism and excitement. Just a simple thing of going out and having a laugh.
Right.
So it's so simple in terms of it's where it's going, where it comes from, and where it goes to. It's a delight, and so it's grown into this fantastic party track. And yeah, it's been synced up in loads of adverts, and I think great. I think it should do. I think it's an amazing song. I think you're right about the film. The film absolutely, totally made Queen front and center again in America, and it made everyone realize the story behind. I think a lot of people kind of know the story behind some bands. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the Beatles, and their Cavern days, and then the Ed Sullivan Show, and all that sort of stuff. And Queen needed that. I think Queen needed something that sort of coalesced those their origins story, and Freddie's story, and to make it in a way that was accessible, because Queen have always spoken to a lot of generations. There's the diehard Queen fans that have been around for decades. There's the new fans, and they've always somehow managed to welcome in the new fans. They've always been really good at that in terms of how they pitch their videos, how they adapted and sculpted their styles to sort of be redolent of their earlier work, but also fresh and new. Yeah, they were always great at that. I mean, that was one of their major sort of genius strokes was keeping that going, and they've managed to do it. And the way that they pitched that film and casting the band the way they did, so amazing. I mean, Rami was fantastic as Freddie. He let everyone into Freddie's emotional world. Freddie wasn't this remote, aloof figure that people seem to regard him as sometimes. Rami really let everyone see the beating heart of the man, and empathize with what he was going through and the pressure he was under, and his life and how he tried to make sense of his life as he went through it. And the band around him, became this core family of his, all at the same time as producing this amazing work. So yeah, I think it was amazing, and we certainly noticed that with the audiences that were piling through the doors in 2019. especially. You'd see young kids front row. It was the kids bringing their parents to the show rather than the parents bringing the kids to the show. That was the difference.
Okay.
And it was such a difference. Yeah.
Wow.
And great, fantastic.
And you kind of alluded to it in terms of the marketing, the branding, if you will, to this day of the band. And of course, it's primarily Brian May and Roger Taylor at this point, but still, how they've nursed Queen to this day to still be a big deal. Why, or what is the essence of the band, and why did they establish themselves in that pantheon, even beyond just how like American popularity has evolved? Just looking at the core of their music, their image, all of that, having performed their music for so long now, what would you say is the thing that makes them so important to pop rock music?
I think anything to do with that starts with the songs, but it's not just the songs. It's the songs. I would say that the bedrock of everything. I mean, that's self-evident. It's the quality of their songwriting never allied itself wholly to one particular genre of rock. They hopped around on an album. They'd hop around from genre to genre. They sort of invented thrash metal with Stone Cold Crazy. Some people to this day think it's a Metallica cover. No. Queen. Some bands would take a song like Stone Cold Crazy, and that would be the whole album. It'd be different versions of that kind of song, and then cut to the heavy, harsh dynamic of a vocal, and then the band comes in again. So that would be like a whole album for a band, and Queen just did that we do that as well.
Right.
And they did a million other songs right beside it that were equally groundbreaking and extraordinary. So I think that dexterity they had with styles meant that you couldn't put them in a box, and everybody loves putting a band in a box. They want to say Alice Cooper's like this, and the artists that really survive the test of time, people like Queen, people like the Beatles, people like Bowie. They refused to arrive gift boxed. They will let you find them in an entirely new environment again and again and again, and rediscover them and go, oh God. So you become, you become a real follower of the band because you're desperate to see what they do next, rather than desperate to see them repeat what they did last. And Queen were amazing at that, but also they realised the enormous power of video. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody was the first ever video." Clearly, it wasn't, because you've got thousands of promo clips, that predate that. But what it did was there was the amazing Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields promo clips. They were groundbreaking too, but in a way, they didn't herald a change in the industry. They were just something that the Beatles was doing, and it was convenient for them because that means they wouldn't have to tour, And Queen did their video to Bohemian Rhapsody for the same reasons. They couldn't do the big show over here called Top of the Pops. They were on tour, so here's your video, Top of the Pops. And they also didn't like doing Top of the Pops that much, because it was tiny stages and it was a compromise. So let's not have any compromise with a single that was all about no compromise. Let's have a video that goes with it. And it changed the industry overnight, but it meant that Queen become immortal. And Queen have also had, because so much of their stuff, so much of their amazing tracks have got fantastic videos. So all those songs that you say that, dipped for you in the 80s, they don't have to have been a hit now at the time. You can America and every 10-year-old and 12-year-old and 15-year-old and 20-year-old and 30-year-old can all enjoy the video to I Want to Break Free now. Mm-hmm. They can all enjoy the amazing video to Radio Gaga now, because those videos are timeless. So in a way, they've sort of beaten time, whereas a band had to have the hit at the time or else they're not going to be hits. Now, with YouTube and the way that the world has gone, people are discovering Queen and absorbing every one of their hits, whether they were a hit in the territory or not. So we'll play songs like Radio Gaga and they'll bring their house down in America, whereas that would have been an obscure song, potentially, at a different stage of their career. Yeah. Simply because it didn't chart at the time. It didn't get that glorious little window of fame of hitting the Billboard, So everything's got a lot more egalitarian, and all you need now is, I say all you need, it's hard to do, but, something like a film like Bohemian Rhapsody that turns that spotlight so firmly on Queen and just let the whole world, and it's so beautifully distributed. They had a really, they did it so well, and it was so beautifully cast. I mean, the guy playing Brian was Brian.
Yes.
In that film, he was
Yes.
Guillaume Lee, I think he was called. He's just amazing. I've seen him in other stuff as well. He's a great actor. Yeah, I mean, all it takes is something like that for everyone to go, okay, yeah, Queen, give me more Queen. We want more Queen. And then, everyone can suddenly dial up those videos that weren't a hit at the time, but are so fantastic now. And they're great performance videos like Hammer to Fall, where you've got Forest National Stadium and stuff, which we've played as well. We've been lucky enough to play. And just watch what sort of masters of their craft they were. But they hit the ground running. Queen were amazing. I mean, they you listen to an album like Queen 2, they had all the ingredients and the song, and a lot of the songwriting elements that they later incorporated in things like the March of the Black Queen and stuff. You can hear Bohemian Rhapsody waiting to be born from that song in terms of some of the cadences and some of the riffs that they've got in there. There was so much potential and so much. They were so good at realizing what they had very, very quickly, and then working out the best way of making sure that everybody could get a chance to see that. In a way, the press couldn't keep up with them. So the press would turn on them now and again because the press were going, well, we want to call you this. And journalists can be a bit lazy sometimes, They just sort of reach in the drawer about what everyone said about them last time and then just say it again, Right. And I think Queen were hard to bottle. You couldn't pin them down, And they had so much to offer that I think they took journalism by surprise a lot of the time throughout their career, not just early on, And it takes something to reframe and let everyone stop and smell the roses for everyone to go, hang on a minute, forget what anyone wrote at the time. This stuff is extraordinary work. This stuff is amazing. And this band is one of the most, it's not just they've achieved more in the pantheon of rock. I go more than that. I think they are the pantheon of rock. I think that their work is extraordinary. A song like We Will Rock You, it feels like it could, if you're going to have Arthur C. Clarke's 2001, you could take out the Thus Spoke Zarathustra or whatever and put We Will Rock You in there with a guy with smashing the rock on there, and it would work just as well. Do you know what? It's that primeval,
right.
So I think Queen are rock and roll, and I think they are, and they're also musical theatre, and they're also ballads. They brought such a range of emotion to music that took it away from lyrically. A song like Who Wants to Live Forever is extraordinary. And a valedictory song like The Show Must Go On and all the Days of Our Lives is so mature and so moving that I think if you swung a spotlight onto Queen in the way that film did, and the music wasn't there, the generation the spotlight would just move on to something else. These things like the musical We Will Rock You and things like Bohemian Rhapsody the film. And any other device they can think of, and long may they continue to think of different things, it throws a spotlight onto the extraordinary songs. So I say it again, it comes back to those songs, because that attention would just wither and vanish if the kids today would sort of like look at what was there and go, yeah, so what? And they don't. The kids today look at what's there and go, this is the best stuff I've heard. This is amazing. I want to hear more of this. This band extraordinary, So that their legacy is their music, and any device that gets people switched on to that music, I applaud, and particularly as it's done so well, and it makes their personalities become part of that legend, which I guess it has to if you're going to enter into realms of folklore, and that kind of vibe. You need to have a good storytelling mechanism to do that, and I think they've got that with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Speaking of legend, if you really think about it, and I was just thinking about this a bit earlier, there are not too many pop rock performers where their performing style is immediately identifiable just by looking at a photo of them.
Yeah.
And the Freddie Mercury silhouette, the fist, the held up microphone, there's like probably 2 or 3 poses, but they're ones everyone knows. And like I said, there's not too many others you can say that about. You actually have to see a photo of them, even silhouetted. That wouldn't work. So you're channeling. I mean, that's a pretty big obligation to nail Freddie Mercury's persona. So having done that for so long, how is there a certain aspect of his style that the layperson, even a Queen fan, wouldn't understand, but you gotta get it just right to properly channel that onstage persona?
There are lots of elements to that you bring to performance. You know, there's an element of sort of studying what he did, seeing what he did, but you've got to also look at the impetus of when you see particularly live stuff, but also videos. You know, you can see, you know, a lot of improvisational quality in what Freddie does and did. He's very open to the music and embodies the dynamic of it with his whole body. You know, he'll arch his back, he'll throw his head, he'll pirouette. But these aren't just meaningless sort of, you know, points of choreography. These are all so perfectly aligned to what an audience's heart is feeling when they listen to the song. And you can see he's in that moment, and he's there, and the audience can see he's in that moment, whether it's a video or whether it's live. You know. So yeah, and because he was doing that so often, you know, so many shots of Freddie look iconographic, because you can see he's doing more than just throwing a pose. I mean, he is throwing a pose. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Rock stars throw poses; it's part of their job. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to get that bit. You know, I don't want to blow that out of the water. He's throwing poses, but the way he's throwing poses, and the energy that it's captured, and the fact that it can be distilled into a still image, and so often become iconographic. Means that he was channeling a lot. You know, he was channeling the music and emotion to a really high level. So yeah, it's a pleasure to do. It's a pleasure to do on stage. I come from an acting background and an improvisational background, as well as dance and music too. So that all helps. But essentially, you've got to bring a lot of love to the stage. You've got to love what you do. And I love what I do. And I feel really lucky, supremely lucky to be able to do this as a job, because it feels like I'm playing, you know. And Freddie always felt like he was playing on stage. He felt like he was having a ball and just having a laugh. And do you know what? There's a huge responsibility. I agree. Stepping into the shoes of Freddie Mercury is an insane thing to do, but I find myself doing it, and do you know what? I love it, and it feels like I'm having a ball. It feels like I'm playing every night when I go on stage. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, how you feel off stage, if you're tired or if you're ecstatic or whatever your feelings are off stage. They're entirely irrelevant to when you step on stage, because you've got again the bedrock of these songs, you know, and these songs feed you. You know, they feed you everything you're ever going to need as a performer, in terms of, you know, drawing energy and inspiration and performance from it. You know, so it's fresh every night. It's you know, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to do out there. Some things, you know, but that's what I love about it. You know, I've done this for a long time now, and you know, what I love about it is the fact that it's as fresh as you want it to be. You know, it's there for the taking. You know, it's brilliant, and the audience want you to succeed. The audience don't want to have a they don't. No one wants to see a crisis of confidence on stage. They want to see confidence on stage. You know?
Right.
So that's a given. They want you to succeed, and they want to hear their favorite songs. You know, there's so much positivity in the room before you even put your foot on stage. You know, that all you've got to do is meet it with your own and your sense of fun, as well as the craft of what you've learned to do, and this, that, and the other. You know, but you know, in some ways, you work and you work and you practice and you practice and you practice, so you can forget all that and just be on stage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the fun, and I think that's what Freddie Mercury was. You never felt he was just phoning a performance in. You felt he was being with you that night on stage, with you, and you are the whole crowd. You aren't just you anymore. You're part of something huge, and you're part of something huge that involves Queen, and you're a big as part of that as they are. You know, it's very almost egalitarian, a song. People regard songs like "We Are the Champions" as kind of arrogant or something like that. That only depends on who the we is. You know, it's not arrogant if we includes everyone in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if then it becomes collective, and then it becomes beautiful, and then it becomes empowering. It's only we if it's just you're talking about me and your best pal. You know,
right?
Hey,
yeah.
If it's just me and him, we're amazing. You know,
Little self-serving there, right?
out.
Yeah.
You know, but if that we involves everybody, then it's not that. It's a song, because if you listen to the verse of those songs, it's about someone that didn't have the best of times, that, you know, that stood up to, you know, the person that kicked sand in their face, you know, and no bed of roses, you know, and it's about empowering. And so, and that we is everybody. So when we sing "We Are the Champions" at the end of the song, the whole crowd is singing it. We're singing it collectively together, and that's so powerful. You know, that's why sporting. Freddie said he was thinking about football when he wrote it. He wanted something to unite an audience. So he did. I mean, mission successful.
Right.
Same with "We Will Rock You," though. See, they kind of came together, those songs. You know, one was Brian's and one was Freddie, but they sort of almost like they were. It's almost like Lennon and McCartney at that point. Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields. You know, I always think it's the same with "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions." Those two songs kind of, you know, birthed together, but inspired by each other in some way.
That's an interesting point. You mentioned that you get to play every night on these shows.
Oh.
And you got 3 other folks behind you, too, and to the side of you doing that. Describe the other 3
We're
guys.
all messing about together.
Yeah.
The other guys are fantastic. We've got John on drums, who's he just makes everything sound huge. I don't know how he does it. He just has to pick up anything he hits sounds like, you know, an aircraft taking off. He's amazing. And Simon on guitar is just one of the best guitarists I've ever worked with. He's so good, and he's got such a great singing voice as well. They all sing, but Simon's voice is just beautiful. He covers a lot of the really high stuff on the BBs, so that's always quite handy as well. But yeah, he's great, and he's very dynamic as a performer too. And then Brad on bass, he's so solid, so musical. He's got, like John Deacon actually, he's got quite a diverse range of his own musical interests, which are sort of very full, you know, and very much wider than what you see him play on stage. So I think everyone brings their own sense of musicality to the table. I mean, I studied classical guitar and piano too, so, you know, I've got a fairly strong musical background, as well as rock and roll. I was in bands and stuff. So I think we've all been playing a long time together. It feels very comfortable, and it's great being back together. So we can, you know, I think we get a real sense of belonging. We're on stage. You know, it's where we should be.
What's the band's approach to recreating the music? Some I know will, if like a tribute band, or even some of like the originals. Like I know Paul McCartney always strives to accurately recreate the songs as people remember them. Do you guys go for accuracy? Is it spirit? Is a genre?
It's a little. Yeah, I know what you're saying. There's a weird line to cross. I think Queen now are a lot more faithful to their records. They change things up, you know. They mess around with things, but I think they've got a lot more people on stage, so they can get closer to the arrangements. I think that's sort of. I think people want to be able to recognise what they're hearing, but they want to know that it's there and in the moment for that night. So there's a sense of it could change, or how we're going to do this, or there's a sense of drama and expectation about a song. So it's not just performing by rote, you know.
Right.
And I think a good band that's doing what we do and creating that atmosphere needs to create atmosphere with those songs and have a sense of, you know, voyage into the unknown, you know, about it, and a sense of element of danger and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, a sense of recognizability. You know, you need to straddle both of them, really, I think, to make it work. Last question for you. What is your favorite song to perform? Well, I guess that swaps around a little bit. You know, it would be crazy if your favorite song was the same song every time. Currently, my favorite song to perform is "Save Me," because I mentioned this the other day, actually. Yeah, there's a great feeling. When you're in a band, sometimes you just feel so great just because you're in a band. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you're on stage, and there's a certain song that makes you think, "Hey, isn't it great being in a band?"
Right.
I think it's to do with the dynamics of the song. It's to do with the fact it goes places. You know, it starts off very tender and softly spoken, and then becomes extraordinary, and then moves to this, you know, very sort of tortured climax. You know. And it's supposed to be a sad song, okay? "Save Me," you know, it's kind of fairly sort of maudlin lyrics, you know. They're sort of, you know, but I can't help but feel totally over the moon when I play it because it's such good fun being in a band,
right?
And it's one of those songs that, for me, you know, makes me think, oh, you know, I'm really lucky I can do this, you know. When you're a kid, you wonder, you watch music shows and you see people in a band and they laugh and they grin at each other, and you think, yeah, that looks like a good job, you know, and then everyone on stage is laughing and clapping at them. You think, yeah, that looks like an even better job. What's wrong with this job? This is great. Why doesn't everybody want to be a rock star? I wonder what it feels like. And certain times when you're playing songs, with certain songs, and for me at the moment, that song is Save Me. You think, yeah, this is what it feels like, and it feels excellent. It's like, yeah,
nice.
This feels good. I'll have some more of this, please.
Well,
so, yeah, that's my favorite.
You get to live an awesome life right now. That is great. You get to do this. This has been a blast chatting about this and
it's been lovely.
Deep diving Queen music. This is absolutely great. Patrick Myers of Killer Queen, March 30th, Pablo Center at the Confluence in Eau Claire. Going to be a great show. Welcome to the Chippewa Valley. You'll have a fun time while you're here. Have fun on the tour with the group. All the best, and thanks for taking time to chat.